Welcome to the last presentation of today. I hope your day was a pleasant one. Just before I start, try to pronounce Želimeščica. Go on, those that are not Slovenes. Try. Like we have some difficulties with other languages, but today we can brag on this one. So okay, this works. My talk is going to be rather short. I didn't prepare many slides. We go through the introduction, then the bit of challenges, the approach, and at the end, of course, the declaration and the statement. So my talk is going to be about the competent person, or the professional title within the disaster risk management and governance of resilience communities. So it's a bit different of what you may listen today. But then again, it's not. If we relate to the previous talks, I would say that almost every profession needs professional titles to ensure some sort of standardizations and some sort of professionalism in the work. So, but I'm going to focus on the disaster governance and risk management related to that. So, what we see is that by dealing with disaster risk management, the approach should be effective, it should be ethical, responsible, it should be trustworthy, reliable, and of course professional. But unfortunately, not always that is the case. So here lie many challenges that we have to address. And these challenges are several-fold. One is to understand the complexity of natural processes. That is one thing which is pertinent or special to every field that we operate in. And then there's a more general approach where we have the objects or subjects that are affected or could be affected by these events that we are observing. And at the end, not least important, I think it's very much important, is understanding the cultural and political background of the environment that we are engaging in, because not everywhere around the world the approach is the same, as you can imagine. But the biggest challenge I think we have, everybody of us, all of us, is how to gain trust. How to gain trust of those people that we want to help. If you consider the disasters approach, people start to feel suspicious if you're not approaching in an appropriate way, because then they start to feel that you're not actually trying to help them, but you're trying to get some sort of benefit out of it. So what you need to build is a trust with the stakeholders, and I think that's the most important part. And how to build that trust? Well, first you have to start with building your own competency, building your own expertise, building your own, let's say, image, but not in a bad way, of course. And when you achieve a certain level of that competency, and that takes quite some time and takes quite a lot of engagement from personal and from the community, the professional community perspective. When you reach that level, then you're eligible to go to talk and discuss and to build trust with the local stakeholders. If we go back to the disaster risk management area, like every area around the world or every professional area that deals with irresponsible, it should not be here responsible, but irresponsible decisions could lead to devastating consequences and, of course, also to legibility or liability or financial liability or damage liability. The same as every other professional areas, also the disaster risk management deals with these challenges. And I think it's even higher than many of other professional areas. So one of the solutions how to address this, I've already mentioned it in between the lines, is to build upon the professional titles. This is not just something that is put on paper. Of course, you have a paper for it, but that's not enough. You have to build your own personality, you have to build your own expertise, and that's the key issue, to build expertise that people will trust in. This is quite long, so I will sort of shorten it. Basically what we need is to set up certain standards. Certain standards that all that comply with this professional title will follow and will obey, no matter what. Okay, except if the wife tells you not to do that. I'm joking. But to follow this standard and to follow certain procedures that are established within the domain of disaster risk management. And the areas that underpin these standards and this title are, first of all, competence, which is derived from educational background and from professional, let's say, development through your career. Then it's the experience. Experience, you can gain some by just studying books, but actually the real experience comes from the field work, from actual work within communities with disaster risk challenges. And then it doesn't stop where you finish your degree or professional education. It continues through your whole life. So continuous professional development or personal development, if you want, it has to go all the way down to the last day of your career. And of course, we also have to oblige some sort of ethical rules. That's, I think, it's very important. It doesn't matter how experienced we are if we are not ethical in our work. So code of ethics is important. But if you want to gain the title, of course, you need some sort of entering point. So what is suggested, or what is probably the main or the usual approach, is to have at least 2 or maybe more sponsors or people that vow for who you are, what your experience is, and what you can contribute to the area. So then, if you go through all these steps, if you comply to all these steps, you're granted with the title. But that doesn't stop, of course, that's just the beginning. So the title gives you the right to operate in specific field. But then there's another level, a higher level, which is a competent person. A competent person is somebody that has a track record of good performance within the professional field. And that track record shows that you're competent in solving more challenging questions, in this case, the disaster risk management. And the competent person has to have 3 main advantages, or let's say advantages. Knowledge, which is something that we already talked about, and which we can call a solid background, or a hard experience, hard knowledge, hard skills. But then there are also other skills like communication, like empathy, like understanding, listening to people. And those are called soft skills that we will see in the next slide. And also attitude. You have to be respectful. You have to have an attitude, first of all, self-esteemed, self-confident, but of course an attitude that helps open the doors with the local population and to build trust. So if we go to the last slide, or just one before the last, this is how I see the business competence, whatever field we are talking about. It's not just the disaster risk management, it's all professional fields. So it's basically constructed or consistent of 3 pillars. Like we said, the experience, the knowledge, the skills, and the attitude. And these are the ones that will help us grow personally and build our expertise and eventually address the issues of disaster risk management effectively and with trust within the communities. So, to conclude, the contribution to Ljubljana's declaration is that also, like in other professional fields, the field of disaster risk management and governance of resilient communities needs a concept of professional title that will promote an excellence, the trust, the competence, and the ethical components in our work. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, this is an idea to be followed. I think theoretically there are some institutions, I think in Great Britain or better United Kingdom already offering that you pay for some knowledge, basically, I think more or less knowledge, and you gain such a title you could use. So somebody is already selling this idea. I don't think enough skills and attitude is covered by them. How they check that? But the idea is, of course, is good. The question is who will do that? Who will?
It has to be somebody independent.
Yeah.
That's really important. So it's not biased. It's I would say intergovernmental or above governmental. So
international institution
definitely.
To be able to give such a title.
Yep.
After checking guys and the curriculum.
They are
Yep.
entitled to
Let's say yes.
But the technical chambers are only within the nations, within the countries. So what we need is accreditation scheme, international, or even broader.
the recognition of the title should be international.
Yep.
Then the authorization and the accreditation is transferable.
That's true.
But if there is a common standard, a universal one standard, well accepted, then it will be recognized internationally. But this is how the English are doing that with their, Charter of Engineering.
I think this is broader, this is wider.
Yes,
it's not
yes,
just
yes,
about
yes,
the
yes.
knowledge. There are skills, attitude. It's not very easy to,
Yes, yes.
give a title. A professional title is
Well,
maybe.
Yes.
Yeah,
I can tell you from the geological perspective, because British the Chamber of Engineers has a subsidiary that deals with the mining, competent person, which basically originated the whole idea because of the scheme in Indonesia in 90s. So what the approach is, the first you reach the professional title, then you have to follow the code of ethics, which is upon yourself. And every year you have to prove that you've self-educated yourself, that you worked on the projects or on the issues concerning your field of expertise. And it's a sort of self-declaration, which, of course, comes back to ethics.
But this is what is happening in the medicine. The medical doctors are forced every year to go to a certain number of hours, I think, or credits, and they submit all this by the end of the year to their national society.
This is the same approach. You have the formal education, you have also informal one, but of course informal one is much less scored than the formal one, naturally.
However, it is an international practice that within the project management, the risk management is performed. So what you precisely describe is within the project charter, etc. And in Greece, for instance, concerning the rights of the engineers, this type of right and this type of execution within the profession is described as a general feature which applies to all the engineers that are capable to act as project managers. So I think what you are doing is important. I mean, to disseminate the culture for this approach to the risk management, because this is an approach. I fully agree, it is expressing.
Thank you, Professor Moropoulou. We have a Selva Kumaran,
Yeah,
please.
just on the comment of what the UK does, because that's where I'm from. Yeah, there's kind of a blurred between those two sections. There is, like you said, for certain instances, we have a number of different professional institutions, many of them. And so, for example, like the Institution of Civil Engineers, you do have to get professionally chartered and qualified, and then every year you have a minimum number of continuing professional development hours that now has just been made an online standard so that they can check that you're doing your number of hours. But saying that, this idea of disaster risk management and government for resilient communities, I think it's a separate topic which doesn't have a chartered institute or a set of governance.
Not yet.
In the UK. In the UK, what they do is they try to encourage you to become more aware of the principles, and they charge, yes, like courses, disaster ready, you can do a bunch of online courses. The REDAR provide courses for professionals who are interested in this subject. But historically, what we had was people who thought, I am a professionally qualified engineer, I can go help in whatever disaster in whatever part of the world, and will go put myself in a different country. And what you had was kind of people coming from certain countries thinking, I'm going to help save everyone in this disaster, but actually causing more harm to the country because of their lack of awareness. They're technically qualified, but they're not culturally qualified in a number of the different things you raised. And I agree that there should be some kind of more professional qualification. The UK doesn't have it.
Okay, thank you. There is another one. We should be slowly then finishing because Ljubljana Declaration in the freshest edition version is waiting for us to be adopted in 5 minutes. So please, yes.
Hello, thank you. I'm coming from Slovenian Chamber of Engineers, and I would like something about your proposal. As far as I understand it, you are proposing international regulated profession. Namely, regulated profession is something that several countries in Europe have. Also in Slovenia, we have chartered engineer, we have chartered architect. What are the conditions to become a chartered engineer? For example, it is what you said. First, the formal education, then you have to have professional experience, you have to pass a professional exam, and then you have to follow the code of ethics. And then what happens, we have many sections. Let's say civil engineers, mechanical engineers, like in Great Britain. I know there is institution of civil engineers, then for mechanical engineers, etc. And when these people would like to travel and move, we have a directive on the EU level, directive on recognition of professional qualifications. As far as I understand you, you are now proposing international regulated profession on disaster risk management. Am I right?
I think it's a bit more. We are only talking about the technical expertise here, but when dealing with disaster risk management, you have to have soft skills also. You have to have attitude approach, which as a pure engineer dealing with stuff, not with people, with nurturing people in the hour of need.
We are not that far yet.
Yeah, we are not as far yet. So this is a step forward.
We are professional. We are now in Slovenia. At least we have now introduced obligatory continuous professional development. Every engineer will have to, as in England or in other regulated profession, will have to gather some certain number of points each year, and will have to take care of his or her professional development. But we are following code of ethics. That's about it.
Well,
it's up to everyone what he does in his professional life.
Thank you. There we have the last contribution, if I may interrupt the discussion, which is a very interesting one. Another one there. Tomo, you want? There is, please.
In Australia, there are courses or universities are starting to adapt and offer supplementary courses in humanitarian engineering. And these are not unique degrees at this stage, but I'm sure they will be in the future. I do a lot of work in third world countries in humanitarian engineering, and it is something which is recognising all the attributes that you have said are required.
Well, that's encouraging. Hopefully we'll get it in Europe soon.
Thank you. Tomo, last word. Just take the mic, please. Please.
I really like the idea of trust building because it is a key ingredient of any successful project, and maybe this is the source of recommendation, the team with whom you worked in the past that could contribute to these credentials that you are talking about.
Okay.
Thanks.